Now, it's time to meet the players of college sports today and get this show started. He's a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback, a first-round NFL draft choice, and a member of the College Football Hall of Fame as both a player and coach. He is the head ball coach, Steve Spurrier. He's a rare two-time SEC Player of the Year and spent over a decade in the NFL. Ladies and gentlemen, Shane Matthews. And presenting the host of the show with over 25 years of sports broadcasting experience, Terry Norvell. Coming to you from the College Sports Today studio, it's time for College Sports Today with Spurrier, Matthews, and Norvell.
We got ourselves a big show planned today here on College Sports Today. You're in luck. We got a lot going on a Friday. The head ball coach, of course, is right here, Steve Spurrier. I'm Terry Norvell. The first half of the show, another Florida football flashback. The second half of the show, we preview the SEC Media Days with Frank Frangie, who will be in Hoover. Frank will join us at the bottom of the hour. Coach goes for the first half hour. Coach, I want to look, if it's okay with you, back at the magical 1996 Florida football season. Overview, first of all. You knew you had a good football team coming in. You were 12-1 a year before.
Yeah, really. In fact, this year we're having the 25th reunion, and we're bringing back the 95 team also.
Okay,
I like to sort of throw those guys in there together because they're both 12-1. One of them won the national championship. The other one finished second because we got blown out by Nebraska. But the 95 team, before we get to 96 team, they're still the only team in school history, 1995 Florida Gators, that went undefeated through the season and won the SEC game.
Yep.
Urban had a team went undefeated but lost, I think, in 09.
To Alabama and Atlanta,
So 95 team, man, that was one of the great teams of all time. But didn't win national championships, so they sort of get left out of the greatest of all time. And then the 96 team, well, we're not national champions if they'd had a different format to where, anyway, they later had number one play number two.
Sure.
If they'd done that, Arizona State would have played FSU, and FSU would have beat Arizona State in all likelihood.
And won that.
And FSU would have had another national championship. But because of the format of the last games, we went to the Sugar Bowl because we won the SEC. And FSU went to the Sugar Bowl because they won the ACC.
Yes.
So we're sitting there, obviously hoping Ohio State would beat Arizona State in the Rose Bowl, and that happened. So all of a sudden, we're playing for the national championship against FSU. So, both those teams were very similar.
And a lot of carryover players, right? A lot of players from 95 carried over right to 96.
A lot of same players, but we did have some seniors on that 95 team, too. And I just don't want those guys to get left out of the glory. It worked out, and obviously we really, really played well that game in the Sugar Bowl against FSU.
And obviously we're going to get through that season and go through 96, the highs, the lows, some of the sticky moments, some of the big wins. But again, you mentioned, I think I heard you correctly, Coach Spurrier, this year the Alabama game, we're going to recognize the 95 and 96 teams at the Alabama. Is that pregame?
No, Tennessee game.
Oh, the Tennessee game. Okay, is that pregame or halftime, or do we know yet?
Well, what they've been doing,
and
I'm not sure, but they get us between the first and second quarter.
Okay, that's how they're going to do it. They're going to bring them all out
First and second quarter, we go out there, and they give me the microphone, and I start talking. We did it 2 years ago for the, was it the 93 team or 94 team? I'm not sure. But and then the ref said, you got to get off the field real quick. I was still bragging on my guys, and we had to hustle up and get off.
You didn't get a delay of game penalty, did you there, Coach?
No, but I hope they give us at least about a 2-minute window there to really brag on the 95 team. 96 team, they've had all the accolades and all that. So I'm sticking up a little bit more for our 95.
Yeah, so that's something to look forward to. The Tennessee game coming up this year in the Swamp. We'll recognize the 95 and 96 great Gator teams.
Both 12-1.
Yeah. Woo!
One finished number one, one number two. So for a 2-year period,
not bad.
We were the best in the country.
Not bad.
Over those 2 years.
96 season, Coach. Let's dive into it. Well, we've got you about 20 minutes. You get started, big win over Southwest Louisiana. One of the differences, too, I think, if I'm correct, from 95 to 96, you brought over a new defensive coordinator.
Bobby Stoops. Yeah, I saw Bobby Stoops last weekend. You know, he's got a place at Crescent Beach,
sure.
so he's
Sure.
he comes every chance he gets. Yeah, Bobby Stoops, 96. He was only here 3 years, and then got the head job at Oklahoma, of course. But we finished number 1 in the country, number 4, and number 5 the 3 years that he was here. Only won one SEC. We lost that one SEC game in 97 and 98 that prevented us from getting to the championship. But sometimes I guess it happens that way. But he had 3 of the best teams in school history when he was here.
Man, and think about his run there for what, a 6-year run. He was part of 2 national titles. One at Florida and one at Oklahoma in a short period. Bob Stoops. So that was one difference. Couple games early, big wins over Southwest Louisiana, 55-21 to open the season. Then you get a big win over Georgia Southern, 62-14. That gets you to the big one early in the 96 season in Knoxville. Huge game, Coach. I was up there in the stadium there covering the game. Final score, 35-29. You jump out to a big lead early, kind of rainy, misty day. Kind of pick up some of the early start, particularly that 4th down early.
Yeah, I think Tennessee really overhyped the game. They talked about it all summer. Biggest game in Neyland Stadium history and all this, that, and the other. And the way you got to look at it, in 95, Tennessee only lost 1 game, and that was to us down here in the swamp. And they had most of those guys coming back. Yeah. So preseason, they were
good football team.
They were number 2 in the nation, I think, and so forth. In 95, they finished 11-1. That's the only game they lost was to us down here. So they were preseason number 1 or 2, something like that, 3. And so it was hyped up, and the biggest crowd ever, and all this, that, and the other. And it was a rainy afternoon, and Coach Fulmer elected to kick off to us. They won the toss.
Okay.
And he kicked off, and his reasoning was, he said he got a weather report that there was a big thunderstorm going to pop right at kickoff time. Well, the storm went somewhere else. and so we got it, and of course we hit that 4th and 12. Danny Warfel and Riedel Anthony just made the play. We're trying. I was looking down there around 15 yards. We had Ike going across the middle somewhere, and the next thing I knew, the ball was going toward the end zone, and Riedel was catching it for a touchdown. So that got us ahead. Then we got a couple of turnovers. Peyton had a couple of balls bounce off receivers. Tico Brown got it, and then we got a fumble in midair and scored. And
Antholon, I think, maybe. And
then early in the second quarter, we're up 35-0.
Yeah.
And so anyway, we didn't play real well after that. We hung on, and we stopped them enough, but we gave up an 80-yard touchdown pass with a big lead, and that wasn't real smart.
And that was you pointed out a minute ago. Yeah. That era and that Tennessee team in particular, that's a good football team. Tennessee was loaded with players. They were loaded.
Oh, yeah, they were always, that was usually about the only game they lost in conference play.
Yeah.
Peerless Price one time told me, said, Coach, we lost 3 conference games in my 4 years, and all of them to the Gators.
Yeah.
And of course, they beat us in 98, which was the one game that we lost to them, and they went on and won a national championship.
Won a national title. My buddy David Hess says he really enjoyed the 96 season. It was a great year, as most Gators do. Coach, go back real quick, stay with the Tennessee game as we're doing a Florida football flashback, the 96 season with the head ball coach. First drive, 4th and 12 you mentioned. If memory serves me and help me here, rainy day, and it would have been a really long field goal. So you're kind of in that no man's land, right? So you went for it.
Yeah, too short too far for a field goal.
Too short punt, really.
Yeah, might as well go for 4th and 12. If you punt it in the end zone, they're going to get it on the 20 instead of, I think we're on the 32 or 3, something like that.
Right.
So why not just pitch for it and see what happens? And it's amazing how often you can hit a deep ball on 4th and 12 or 3rd and 15.
Why is that?
Because they like to cover the first down line. So and they think you're going to throw right, near the first down line, which most people do. But every now and then, just chuck it down there. But we had a guy going over the middle and one clearing through the middle, and Danny saw there was nobody deep and hit Riedel on the dead run.
And you said you looked up, and Danny was going to the deep receiver.
He went to the deep one because they didn't cover him.
Beautiful pass.
Yeah.
Right on the money.
Yeah, that was a Danny Warfel decision. He can make decisions as well as anybody.
Tennessee made a heck of a comeback. They scored 29, but you get out of there in that 96 season, 35-29, the huge game in Knoxville. You follow that up, Coach, with a big 65-0 win over Kentucky. An outmatched Kentucky team comes in after the big win. Just too much talent, I guess, 65-0 SEC win.
Yeah.
You follow that up. You go on the road, that 96 team. You head to Fayetteville. And you put a knot on Arkansas by the score of 42-7. So you chased the big win in Knoxville with a 65-0 shutout, a 42-7 near shutout. You come back to Gainesville, Coach. LSU rolls in, and 56-13 later, the LSU game in Gainesville in '96, just a sheer domination.
Yeah, that LSU game, they came in playing bump and run, man-to-man for the first half, and we had 42 at halftime. So after that, they went to big old soft deep zone.
You think?
And we let Fred Taylor and Eli Williams and those guys run the ball most of the second half and get it over with. But I tell you what, every now and then the other teams, they play bump and run man-to-man against everybody else, and they say, well, that's what we do, and we're good at it. And then they try to cover Ike Riedel and Kwesi and these guys, and then a way we can go against that defense.
I was about to ask you, did you think they were going to play that type of defense? But that's what they did, you said, right? So you had a pretty good idea they were going to at least open up in that, and you got them to get out of that quick, didn't you?
Yeah, if you're successful playing a certain style defense,
sure.
We're not going to change for the Gators.
Sure,
I mean, that's what we do. And so the second half, they played sort of a 5 short, 3 deep scheme about the whole time.
Just hit it in front of us and tackle, yes.
Let's slow this thing down. We don't want to get beat 84-0.
So that's a big win over LSU. Boy, 56-13. Another Facebook Live. Dan from Texas said he's watching and enjoying this trip down memory lane. So you rough up LSU in Gainesville. The following week you stay in Gainesville. Auburn comes to town. And, Coach, 51-10 later. I remember this season. I was covering your team this season. But until you see it again on paper, my God, the numbers, Coach, you put up. 51-10. You cruise by Auburn in Gainesville. So back-to-back, you put over 50 on LSU and Auburn. 51-10. What do you remember about that game?
Well, I think they just fired Terry Bowden.
Right.
Somewhere during that 96 season. And I think Brother Bill Oliver was the interim coach.
Might have been, yeah.
He was the interim coach. And Auburn actually beat us in Gainesville in 94, 2 years before.
Yes.
Had that flukish game.
Yeah.
Stuff happens sometimes.
Yeah.
But that was just a good, solid win. Our defense played very well also. They only got 10 points.
Yeah.
And we had a typical offensive day at that time.
So we continue. We're getting in the heart of the 96 season, Florida football flashback with the head ball coach, Steve Spurrier. So let me review for a moment. You put 56 on LSU on October 12th. 7 days later, you put 51 on Auburn. You take a week off. Come to Jacksonville, Coach, the Florida-Georgia game, the 96 Florida-Georgia game. All you do is put a 47-7 knot on Georgia. So you just went with the traditional LSU-Auburn-Georgia run. You put 56, 51, and 47, and your defense gave up basically nothing. 47-7 over Georgia that year in 96 in Jacksonville. Memories.
Well, Ike Hilliard had a class attendance problem. Have you ever heard of a player missing a game for class attendance? Well, that's what we did back in those days.
That week?
You had to go. Yeah, we had a policy. And I remember I was arguing for him. Yeah, maybe he was sick. Or maybe said, no, he wasn't sick, Coach. And we took it all the way to the faculty rep, I think. And he said, hey, we got rules. If you have 3 unexcused absences, you miss a game.
Did he miss a game or a half?
He missed the whole game.
Holy cow.
So I sort of argued for him for a while, but they convinced me we got rules and we got to enforce them. So he watched that one from the sideline. But
so one of your, arguably maybe, but one of your best receivers doesn't play, and you still put 47 on the board in Jacksonville.
Yeah, that was, I think we scored over 50 at every home game there.
Yeah, it looks like it.
I think so.
55, 62, 56, 51, 52. Yeah.
Well, I know
Should charge the fans by points.
The 96 team, we led the nation in scoring offense. We scored more points. I didn't even know they kept that till the guy sent me a little trophy. It said National Scoring Offense Champs.
There you go.
And I said, okay, I'm going to keep this one. So, yeah, I've got that plaque that says that. But, yeah, those guys were really good. The offensive line, and, of course, the running backs, Fred Taylor, Eli Williams, and we had a really wonderful team. And they all stayed healthy to the end of the year. And then both offensive tackles got hurt right before the FSU game. And then both of them were healthy in the Sugar Bowl.
Yeah.
So that was a little bit of
Was
a
Terry
reason.
Jackson a running back in that group?
Yeah,
too?
Terry Jackson.
He was in there as well.
Yeah, Terry played
T-Jack
he
was a
played
great
a whole lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was
great running back.
Instrumental in the national championship game.
So a huge 40-point win over Georgia, and your team is really cruising. And then we get to just about all championship seasons, there's a head scratcher. I don't care if it's basketball or baseball or football. Coach, that hell of a run, LSU, Auburn, Georgia in a row, just whitewashed those guys. You go to Nashville, November 9th on a Saturday. I remember watching the game. I didn't go up and cover it. I watched that game. Coach, it was a nail-biter. You win 28-21 in Nashville, and I mean, some things had to happen at the end of the fourth quarter there. Talk about that. And did you see that coming? Was it kind of a
well, let me tell you what happened.
Okay. Yeah.
No, we were ready to play. We were ready to play. And we're up 28-7.
Okay.
And it's in the late third quarter. And Zach Pillar, our offensive tackle, some guy fell into his leg or something. Actually cracked the bone in his lower leg. So he's laying out there, and he's hurting, and he's rolling around, and our trainers come out. I walk out. Our guys are all standing around. The Vandy guys now, they're defensive guys. They're sort of joking around with Danny Warfel and some of those guys. Hey, how's it going, buddy? You know, that kind of stuff. And one of them, I forget who it was, said, "Hey, Coach Spurrier, how you doing?" So hey, how you doing? We're up
in the middle of the game.
Yeah, it took forever to get Zach off the field. So we finally get him off. I said, "Come on now, let's go." And we were on about our own 40.
Okay.
We're playing this thing out now, late in the third quarter.
Sure.
And the next play, they got a little blitz on. Danny checks to a three-step slant, and the guard didn't get to check. Linebacker, I think Jamie Wilbon's his name.
Good ball player.
Comes in, slaps the ball out of Danny's hand. It hit the ground, come right back to the linebacker. He ran for a touchdown. I mean, just boom, boom.
Like that. So 28-14.
Yeah, we're 1st and 10 on our 4. That's 28-14, just like that. And then lo and behold, they got the ball, and the kid made a long run, 40-yard run for a touchdown. That's 28-21, and there's 7-8 minutes left. I mean, there's some time left there. And we put a drive together to eat up about the last, I think, 4 minutes of the clock, something like that. To get out there. We went for 4th and 1 at midfield. I remember that.
Yeah.
With it 28-21, and Danny was able to sneak it and get the first down. But, that game got tight. I mean, things can happen like that.
It really can.
Smacked the ball out of his hand, hit the ground, bounced, perfect hop.
Yeah.
And ran for a touchdown.
Yeah.
So.
And 5-ish minute delay probably to get the injured player off the field, and there goes the momentum. And I mean, no excuse, but still,
something happens. You lose attention or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But you get out of Knoxville in the championship season of '96 with that 28-21 victory. So 7 days later, back in Gainesville, South Carolina rolls in, and you put 52 on the Gamecocks, a 52-25 win, and that is 2 weeks ahead of the big one in Tallahassee. Obviously.
Well, you know the other significance of that South Carolina game?
What do we got?
It made me the winningest coach in school history, and Coach Graves was at the game, who was the former winningest coach. That was win number 71, and I was able to give him the game ball.
How about that?
In our locker room. I still got a picture of that.
That's nice.
That was one of my best memories of a Gator coach, is giving Coach Graves
your coach
the game ball.
Yeah, gave your coach the game ball. All he meant to you as a player, and
he had the record.
Yeah, and he had the record. And all he meant to you as a player, and he got you to Gainesville.
Recruited me there and everything.
Yeah, and
so anyway,
how about that?
That was a fun day.
Yeah,
be able to do that.
take the week off. FSU obviously had the week off as well. You mentioned the Tennessee game was huge. Well, as this thing built, the game's in Tallahassee, November 30th. I'm at that game, Coach, covering that game. I still, to this day, one of the great games I've ever seen. I mean, there were NFL players all over that field that day. And I tell you, those two teams went at it hard. FSU gets out with a win. You guys onside kicked late, had closed at 24-21. Pick up wherever you want the FSU-Florida game, 96 regular season in Tallahassee, 1 versus 2.
Well, it was a heck of a game, 24-21. They blocked a punt, I think.
They did,
got the ball in our 2 or 3 yard line and scored. I think Warwick Dunn ran for a bunch of yards against him.
First half, he went hard.
Yeah, how many did he total up? Do you know?
He's over 100, but he did a lot of the damage in the first half, though.
Okay.
He got loose in the first half. I think they got up 17-0 in that ball game. I think they got up early in that ball game. He got loose, but that whole game tightened up.
Yeah. And we, like I said, both of our offensive tackles were down, and we probably should have tried to run a little bit more. But they played well. They ran for a bunch of yards. They blocked the punt. And I tell you what, we scored one late to get it to 24-21.
Yes.
And we had TD called back also.
Yes.
Danny hit Riddell on a touchdown pass,
yes.
and our center was blocking. And somehow or another, the guy hooked his arm, the D lineman. And so his arm's out there, but he.
Gotcha.
I mean, he didn't have to call it, but he called it.
Yeah.
He called it. It was an SEC ref. I don't know if I should say this, but there were some SEC refs, Terry, that did not like the Florida Gators. I'm going to tell you that. I'd rather have the ACC crew because they had it, our game with FSU in the swamp here. I never complained about anything with those guys. But those SEC guys, I don't know what it was, but they tossed a flag. We had TD called back in that game also. But we lost. They played better than us, coached better than us, and we were very, very fortunate to get the rematch.
Go back now. Did you say both tackles your starters missed the game, or they played injured? They missed the game.
No, they didn't play.
They missed the game.
Zach Pillar and Mo Collins.
Wow, 2 really good players.
And Mo got hurt in practice. We're just standing around against the scout team, and one of the scout D linemen stumbled over somebody and fell into Mo's knee and stretched ligaments. But he came back and played in the championship game in the Sugar Bowl. But he was out that one.
2 good players. So that gets us 1 loss now. Your one and only loss. Coach, I've always marveled how quickly you have had to turn your team around. The big FSU game, be it in Tallahassee or Gainesville, and most years you're playing in Atlanta 7 days later. That happened, obviously. You lose in Tallahassee. You have to go play a pretty damn good Alabama team in the SEC championship game, December 7th, 45-21. It seemed like Warfel was throwing bombs the whole afternoon. If I remember that game, it seems like he was just picking them apart. 45-30 over Alabama. Talk about it.
Well, that was an interesting week. After we lost, we came back and we were pretty much in the dumps. The 96 team, the goal was to win them all, win the SEC, win the national championship, win the division, finish number 1 in the country. So it appeared that most 2 of those goals were out the window.
Sure.
National championship and all that. So we always take Sunday off. That was my deal. I needed to rest. Coaches,
get away from
we all need to rest a little bit on Sunday. I mean, we'd review the tape, but the players are off. And then Monday afternoon, we would come in and review the tape of the game and practice on Monday night. I always like that Monday night. This gives extra time to do a little game planning, something like that to work on. So the guys came in to watch the tape, and we watched it real quickly and so forth. And then I said, fellas, we're not going to practice tonight. We're all in the dumps, and we're all pouting around, and so let's do this. Let's all go home and get a good night's sleep. Can't do anything about what happened in Tallahassee, and let's get ready to go win us another SEC championship. We got Alabama. SEC championships are one thing we got a chance to do, and we got a chance to do it. And we also put the shotgun in on Tuesday afternoon practice.
Sure.
So Danny Warfel was very comfortable with the shotgun, and we put that game behind us and said, let's go win an SEC. Got to beat Alabama. So Danny Warfel against Alabama throws 6 touchdown passes and 401 yards. and they came into the game the #1 pass defense in the country.
Wow.
And they played that bump and run man-to-man, Terry. But anyway, that was the 45-30 game.
And got your trophy.
And
so
we got us another SEC, and then lo and behold, things started happening. And then lo and behold, we're playing FSU a month later for all the marbles.
And that has been chronicled a million times. But you go up there. We won't dwell on it because we talked about it so much. You go up there and win a national title. Tight game into the third quarter. You mentioned a couple times the way teams played you. The FSU game, that was a rematch. Did FSU defensively do the same thing they did the first time, or did they change? You changed. You put a shotgun in. Did they do anything different defensively? Or did they try and no?
They played pretty much their defense.
Same way? Yeah.
Yeah, they played pretty much their defense. Gosh, they were first or second in the
why
nation
not?
probably defensively anyway. And it was, 24-20 at halftime.
Yeah.
So it was a close game.
Good ball game.
And then second half, a lot of good things happened for us to get it out of reach.
And then you got the big trophy. Wow, I enjoyed that, Coach. There's a lot of stories. I just heard you say you preferred the dadgum ACC referees over the SEC referees.
Yeah. There's no question.
Interesting.
You just look at the statistics of I don't know. Obviously we don't have any proof of this, but the SEC refs. If they're like a Georgia guy, well, they can't do a Georgia game, but they can do a Florida game. So you think the guy went to Georgia?
You could influence.
He's going to think, man. Now people say, well, he's just saying that and stuff like that. But
interesting.
I mean, human instincts. To me, sometimes you ought to get referees from California.
Sure.
Nobody knows any of them, and you call our games, and you Southern guys, you go out to California and call a game.
Yeah.
There's no, feelings. There's no, relationships or anything like that. But anyway, we got some bum calls around, and it was mostly SEC refs. The game we lost at LSU in '97, the guy called me. I had a foot on the field, and we hit about a 25-yard pass. And all of a sudden, when the play was over, and we're down 28-21, he comes back and said, "Coach was on the field." And they never called that. The guy, his foot's on the sideline. The play was way over here. I mean, it was unbelievable. But he tagged us for 15 on that. And that guy, he'd always look for something. And
you found him something.
Yeah. I think they finally quit sending him to our games because I had to call commissioner. Just don't send him, okay?
Yeah.
But anyway.
Coach, thank you so much. A great trip down memory lane, another Florida football flashback with this guy, the head ball coach. Have a great weekend. We'll catch up with you soon. Appreciate your time. Quick break, and on the other side, we keep it SEC football. Frank Frangie, my buddy from Jacksonville, who will be on his way to Hoover, will join us. We'll preview the storylines coming up for the SEC Media Days. Back in a moment.
The good vibes. What? All the good vibes we've had, we'll have again. All the good vibes we've had, we'll have again. All the good vibes we've had, we'll have again. All the good vibes we've had, we'll have again.
Taste the islands and every drop of Vida de Luis tequila. 100% blue agave from Tequila, Mexico. Good vibes.
All the good vibes we've had, we'll have again. All the good vibes we've had, we'll have again.
Me and my boy Matt had it good. He had catnip that was off the hook. But one day, he brings a girl home, and she's allergic to cats. Every sneeze was a nail in my coffin. Now I'm in a shelter. It's decent, but they don't even have Wi-Fi. Hey, look, it's those guys.
Are you good to drive?
I'm fine.
How many did you have?
I should be fine.
You should be.
Go and step out of the vehicle for me.
See ya, buddy. Good luck.
So turns out, buzz driving and drunk driving, they're the same thing, and it costs around $10,000. So not worth it.
I don't remember how it started.
Go to that.
Our back and forth. It always came back.
Dad!
You probably don't remember what you told me,
That was perfect.
but I heard every word.
Take a look under your bed. Find stuff under there? What about jobs? No? Now try your closet. Still no jobs? Just more stuff? Well, you really have both. See, stuff is defined as household articles considered as a group. Sometimes this stuff is no longer needed. Wait, no longer needed? That can't be right. Because remember those jobs you were looking for? Those are really needed. And they're the stuff inside your stuff. Our job is to unlock those jobs. And it starts when you donate your stuff to your local Goodwill. Here's how we do it. When you donate to Goodwill, we sell your stuff to provide job training for people right here in your community. So just by teaming up with Goodwill, you help create jobs. And isn't that worth parting with the leftover keytar from your 80s cover band? Goodwill. Donate stuff, create jobs.
SEC Media Days kicks off this coming Monday. As a matter of fact, the Gators and Dan Mullen will kick the 2021 SEC Media Days off. I thought this was a good time to get my good friend and mentor in the business, Frank Frangie, on. Frank, of course, will be making the trip to Hoover as we welcome Frank to College Sports Day. Frank, I'm guessing 20, 21, 15. How many trips have you made to Hoover?
This will be the 38th one. I will have been at 34 of them. So that's how old. In fact, I'm so old. I got to tell this story. Terry and I had breakfast last week, and his beard looked so good. I tried to grow one just because I wanted to look like yours, and my look makes me look old. Yours doesn't make you look old. So, but this is all because of you. I want you to know that. That's what I did here. So, 34 out of 38 for me, Terry.
I think that vacation might have something to do with it too. I don't think the razor made it to the suitcase. Real quick, folks, you know the name Frank Frangie, synonymous with sports talk radio in and around the South, really, and the nation. Now he's been the voice of the Jacksonville Jaguars for how many years now? With that, Frank, have you called the Jaguars?
This will be my 8th year, Terry. I've done it 7 years. This will be year number 8. The 7 years before that, I did national college games with Gino Torres, so I got to kind of see the country. But this will be year number 8 doing Jags. I'm very excited about it. Really excited about this season.
Some people may have seen the preview and said, Terry's talking SEC football with the voice of the Jaguars. Well, Frank Frangie is as versed in college football as you will find. And, Frank, I know you're heading up to Hoover. Hopefully, before we get you out of here, we'll talk about a couple of things. Number one, I know you guys are really excited about the new affiliation with the Gators, and Coach Spurrier will be involved, and his restaurant will be involved, and we'll try and get to some of that as we go. And it's just big news. That's big news. The Gators are where they're supposed to be in North Florida on 1010XL and 92.5 FM. Frank, some thoughts about storylines coming up in Hoover. First and foremost, if you're like me, and we think a lot alike in college football terms, I'm a little scared. I'm all pro NIL. I'm pro players. I'm pro them making some money. I'm for it. I just worry about unintended consequences. What's your fear level that this could screw up college athletics / college football?
Well, there's going to be some nightmare stories, Terry. There's no denying that. Someone's going to take something they shouldn't have taken. Someone's going to miss a practice because they had to go to a signing. Other players are going to get jealous. There's going to be some of that. It's naive to think all of college athletics suddenly can do this and it's going to go smoothly. It's not going to go smoothly. But I think they got it right. I think players deserve that. And remember this too now. It's not like players have had football and nothing else until now. They've had fraternities. They've had girlfriends, which I hope they still have. They've snuck out on the open week to go back to their hometown and be the star of the high school sideline. Sure. So they've got lives anyway. My hope is that the time they were spending on video games and being in their fraternity and hanging out at their bars with their buddies will now be spent on NIL stuff.
Yeah.
not football time. So I think we'll be okay. I hear you. Your point's right. And there's going to be some horror stories, but I think they'll manage it okay. The interesting thing for me about all the NIL stuff is how does it affect the recruiting base? How does it affect recruiting? If one school does a better job of getting their guys NIL deals, does that help that school get the new recruit? That's the one no one's talking about. And I think it's the biggest part of NIL as far as from the fan base.
You hit on something. We're only 2 weeks into this thing. Everything right now is sugar and spice. It's all new deals, and I'm happy, and the business is happy. Well, you know, business, money, you can't have those two. There are going to be issues. There's going to be the player that the check didn't make it. The company went out of business. The player gets in an argument with his own athletic department about something. We may not hear about that, but it'll take a year or two, I think, to get some data in to see kind of where we're at. But, well, I think that will be storyline number one, the NIL in Hoover. I think that'll the portal will be as well. Frank, would you say storyline number two might be, and it's not a pretty one, the federal investigation at LSU? Ed Orgeron, the sitting coach, is now named as a witness potentially, and the Fed boys have been in Baton Rouge. The Fed boys have been in Baton Rouge looking at the two biggest sports. Is Ed Orgeron, LSU, that whole mess, is that storyline number two, you think?
Yeah, and I will break it down two ways, Terry, for me. Number one, there's big picture stories all over college athletics. NIL is number one. The sort of deregulation of the NCAA, which Mark Emmert has come out and talk about, number two, and a 12-game playoff that's coming in a few years, number three. Those aren't SEC storylines. Those are national storylines. Right. And you're right. Those storylines reach into the NCAA or into the SEC because Tennessee's got issues, LSU's got issues. But I think I break it down to two ways. These national stories, NIL, the deregulation, if you will, of the NCAA, and a 12-team playoff in college football. I think that's one group of storylines. And then I think there's this other group over here that's all about the SEC teams. How's Alabama going to be with everybody gone? Is this the year Kirby Smart wins the whole thing? Can Florida bounce back with a bunch of guys gone? So I break it down into two stories. As for LSU, man, I get the impression the NCAA is going to back off everything. And the only trouble these guys are going to have is what the federal government does. I don't sense there's going to be a big storyline. I don't think the basketball coach at LSU, the football coach at LSU, this guy at Tennessee, I don't sense there's a lot of people losing their jobs. I think the day of NCAA scrutiny and enforcement is kind of over. There's no death penalties anymore. Nobody loses TV anymore. So I think that's not as big a storyline as you might think.
Boy, we do think alike. You when you got into the SEC, my next list here is storyline, is Alabama going to be Alabama again, right? That's going to make its rounds. And, Frank, you're going to probably slap me upside the head when you see me because you've taught me better. I don't know why I feel this way. I think Alabama takes a step back. Am I crazy?
No, I hear you. I probably don't think that because I'm not brainwashed like the rest of the world that somehow they'll figure out a way. But and this is that's the Gator helmet behind me because in addition to being in the media, I'm a Florida grad and I'm probably a bit of a homer, and so I will admit to that. But I'm astounded a little bit that Alabama loses all the noticeable known skill guys. Jalen Waddle's gone. Devontae Smith, who won the Heisman's gone. Mac Jones, the most productive statistical quarterback in the school's history, is gone. Najee Harris, who I think was the best running back in the country, is gone. And people think they're going to go from one to maybe one. Florida loses a 2-star quarterback that nobody wanted, that Dan Mullen made into a great player, a 3-star wide receiver from the state of Alabama that Alabama didn't want, that Dan Mullen made into a first-round draft pick, and Kyle Pitts, who was a heavily recruited guy. And all of a sudden, people think they're not even a top 25 team. So that surprises me a little bit. So back to your original question, I think Alabama's going to be good. I don't know that they're 12-0 good. I have no idea how good Bryce Young's going to be their quarterback, but I think they're still going to be in the mix. I think Florida's going to be closer to that mix than people think.
I've got a statement here that I probably am going to carry over when Shane is back. Shane Matthews, who's normally on our show as well. He's at a reunion in Mississippi. Frank, you'll understand this statement, and it'll lead us into our next topic that I think is going to be high on the SEC topic list in Hoover. Stay with me here, Frank. What if the next SEC football national champion is not Alabama or Georgia? And I think you see where I'm going with that. If the next champion is not Alabama, but then it's not Georgia, what does that do to Georgia? What if LSU or Florida or Auburn was to win the next one, not named Alabama? That would mean somebody is past Georgia, what would that mean to Georgia?
Oh, it'd be devastating, particularly if it's Florida. If Florida passes Georgia, Kirby Smart can't get beat by Florida again, because then he'll be 2-2 against Dan Mullen, and then he will have lost to a Florida team that everybody thinks he's rebuilding. Terry, this is a gigantic year for Kirby Smart. I think Kirby's a better coach than people give him credit for. I think he's done a great job, great recruiter. I think there's 5 elite programs in America right now: Clemson, Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia, and Oklahoma. And I think there's a drop-off after those 5. And I think Georgia belongs in that group. I think Georgia's earned their way into that group. But they don't have to necessarily win the national championship this year, but boy, they got to be close, bro. If they're not in they can't lose to Florida. If they lose to Florida, it's going to feel like, oh boy, Dan Mullen caught us in 3 years. He's our equal in 4 years, and he's about to pass us. Yeah. So to your question, if Florida, LSU, I don't think Auburn's winning a national title.
No, in a while.
I think Florida could. I think LSU could. If Florida or LSU win a title before Georgia, I think that it's not. Kirby Smart's not getting fired, but that is a gut punch of all gut punches to the Georgia people. I think you're dead on.
Totally agree. He's not getting fired. You mentioned he would. The game in Jacksonville, I think, is huge for Georgia. Just like you said, he would be, if they were to lose that game, the Dogs were to lose the Florida-Georgia game this year. You mentioned it, 2-2 against Mullen. He would be 3-3 overall against Florida in 6 years, and that's throwing in McElwain.
I agree with you. This is a game without question Georgia needs to win, but don't make no mistake, Terry. It's a big game for Florida too. If Florida loses, one of them is going to lose. If Florida loses, then Dan Mullen's 1-3 against Georgia. Remember now, Steve Spurrier was 11-1. Urban Meyer was 5-1. Ron Zook was 2-1. Most coaches beat Georgia. So if he doesn't want to go 1-3 against the Dogs, so this is a gigantic game for both of them. Let me tell you one other thought about Mullen. I think this is the storyline next week too. Real big year for Dan Mullen, and here's why. The great coaches, Terry, prove they can do it when the cycle changes. I said this about Billy Donovan. Billy Donovan had Florida in the Final Four in the final game with Mike Miller and Haslam and Donnell Harvey and Teddy Dupay and those guys in 2000, which was his 4th or 5th year, right?
Yeah.
Had a great group of players. But I've always said you're not a great coach until you can flip the roster, get a new cycle of players, and do it again. Well, guess what? The next group came in, and here comes Noah and Horford and Humphrey, and they did it again. This time they won it. That's a great coach. You can flip the cycle. Steve Spurrier did it with Shane and Doring and Aubrey Hill and Harrison Houston. They all went away, and in came Werfel and Hilliard and Anthony and did it again. And then with Rex and Riche and Jamar and did it again. The great coaches can flip the group, change cycles, and still do it. The question, and I think Dan Mullen's really good, by the way, and I think he's going to do it. But that's the question right now with Dan Mullen is Trask and Hammond and Swain and Van Jefferson and Cleveland and they're all gone. Now he's flipped the cycle now. Can you flip the cycle and still be great? And I think he can, but that's the question people are going to ask about Dan Mullen.
A couple more quick topics with Frank Frangie, the voice of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Frank also obviously is as a good a college football guy as you're going to find on radio and or TV. He's covered it a long time. He's heading to he and his team are heading to Hoover for what'd you say, your 34th SEC Media Day. 34th. So we're kind of double dipping. I want to get a little Jaguar talk at the end. Frank, real quick, nationally, I've let my top 4 out. You heard I'm not big on Alabama, so they're not in my 4. I love what Oklahoma has done. I love the way they have reconstructed their defense. They knew they had to get bigger, stronger, faster, and nastier. They did. I love when he went out and got Riley went out and got Alex Grinch. I like Oklahoma and Texas A&M. In the championship game. I like Clemson because I love their schedule if they get by Georgia. And I think the Pac-12 makes a bit of a rebound. I like both USC and Oregon. I've got USC as my 4th team. I love everything about USC and Oregon. They don't play in the regular season. They could play in the championship game. Quickly, that's my 4. I'm not asking you to name or scoop your 4, but Oklahoma A&M. I love A&M. It goes against I like a returning experienced quarterback. I guess Jimbo loves Haynes King. Oklahoma A&M is who I like.
Yeah, I'll have to see. Oklahoma, yes. Spencer Rattler's legit. Lincoln Riley's had him there. Like Georgia, they've been on the cusp. Yes on Oklahoma. A&M is going to have to prove it to me. I think Jimbo Fisher's a great coach. He's recruited very well. They've got all the resources, 100,000 fans. But they are changing quarterbacks. And Jimbo gets fidgety, Terry. He's a guy that he gets fidgety at times. He was going to leave FSU how many times? Because this facility and that facility, and this wasn't done. And he talked to Auburn, he talked to LSU, he talked to Texas A&M and landed at he talked to Texas and landed at Texas A&M. So I'm going to have to. Jimbo, I think, has a shelf life. I think he gets ornery. I think his players play tight. Listen, he did a great job. He's a great football coach and did a great job at FSU. He left that thing a mess in a lot of ways, so I'm not as sold on A&M as you are. I do think they've got a lot of good players. We'll see the new quarterback. I'm with you on Oklahoma. Oklahoma, not just because what we saw them do. That Florida, to me, the Cotton Bowl game didn't matter much from a Florida standpoint. The guys were all gone. Nobody was locked in. But, brother, it mattered to Oklahoma. Oklahoma had to feel – Oklahoma's asking questions. Are we Ohio State, Clemson, Alabama? Do we belong in? And even though here that game didn't mean much, it meant a bunch out there. And it meant a bunch to Spencer Rattler as he launched his Heisman campaign that night. So I think Oklahoma's pretty good. Oklahoma, I agree with you.
I always correlate what Lincoln Riley did a couple years ago to what Coach Spurrier did going from 95 to 96. Lincoln Riley went out and got Alex Grinch, and he was considered that young, really dynamic defensive coach, and it looks like it's paying dividends. Frank, a couple minutes before we let you go. Thank you so much for your time. I know you're just getting back from vacation and heading out of town. What a fun time in Jacksonville right now. That place, North Florida, is hell, the state is stirring. With Jacksonville News and Urban Meyer and Trevor Lawrence and Tim Tebow and just a bunch of draft picks they love, and they spend a lot of money. And how good are they going to be?
I will tell you this. I've been here my whole career. I've called the games the last 7 years. I've covered the games for all 26 years. There's been 3 stretches in my mind, Terry, where the buzz has been like this. 18 was not one of them, even though they were really good in 17. There was a buzz in 18, but it wasn't like this. There have been 3 stretches. Number 1 was the first year when you and I carried our butts to Canton, Ohio. Terry and I did the first ever show from before the game. Jags played the first ever game against the Panthers, the Hall of Fame game, and Terry and I went live on radio. He's old too, just so y'all know. We went live. Remember that, Terry? Live from Canton, Ohio.
A lot of fun.
I think there was a big buzz then about, as you remember very well, buzz about the Jags when we were in Canton in that stretch. There was another buzz in 2000 when it looked like they were, or 99 when it looked like they were really good. I think they had the best team in the league in 99. They lost 3 times to the Titans, and the Titans barely lost to the Rams in the Super Bowl. I think the Jags had the best. So that was the second time there was the buzz.
Yeah.
There hasn't been a buzz like this in 21 years. The buzz is like that now. Urban Meyer's a really good coach. Nobody denies that. They've got this generational quarterback who might be as good a guy as he is a player. Yeah, we're all excited. And Jags fans are good. That's a good fan base, man. I've gotten to know them. It's like a college fan base. They are loyal. They love their team. They are patient. This Jags fan base has earned this, man. They have earned it, and I think people are very excited about what's happening here.
Speaking of excited, I know you're very involved with 1010XL 92.5 FM. Steve Griffin, I've known forever, the great general manager. Talk about the acquisition. Obviously, you're the voice of the Jaguars. Your stations are the Jaguar station. Now you are the affiliate in North Florida for the Gators. Talk about just how big a deal that is.
Yeah. It's a gigantic deal. Number one, the most important thing in Jacksonville is being the flagship station of the Jaguars. That's first and foremost. It'll always be first. And we hope we have that forever. And I hope I get to call the game till they wheel me out of there. That's first and foremost. But the Gators are right behind them. The Gators in Jacksonville mean everything. We've tried to get those rights a lot of times. We've wanted them. We thought they belonged on our air, and we finally have them. It's a big deal. The day we got them, we had Scott Strickland on the air. We had Nick Hubert. We had Steve was on the air. It was a phenomenal day. And I love what we're going to build a lot around that, Terry. We're going to start our Saturdays with Matt Hayes, and I think you are going to do that show together. And I think what a great way to start a Saturday. Matt Hayes and Terry Norvell, who between them have covered college football 700 years, kicking off our college football Saturday. We're excited about that. That's how the weekend starts, with Matt and Terry kicking off college football, every minute of Gator football on, wrapping up college football that day. And then the next morning we do all our Jaguar stuff. It's a Gator shows during the week, Jaguar shows during the week. Nobody in the 26 years they've existed together, because that's how long the Jags existed, no station's ever had both. And we have both, and we're thrilled to have the Gators, and we can't wait to get going. I mean that very sincerely.
Thanks so much, Frank, for your time. I'll let you go. When you make it up to Hoover and get settled, pay that tab. I've got an open tab at that bar right outside that Galleria. Can you pay that off?
I tell them I don't know you.
And speaking of the Canton game, don't ever put me, please, the rest of my life on one of those little puddle jumpers we had to get into Canton. Remember, we took the big one to get to Cincinnati or whatever, but boy, getting from Cincinnati, I think, to Canton, that was a small plane, Frank.
I said if we survived that, and we did barely, we'd have good careers. So, yes, I will never do that again. And by the way, when I get to Hoover, they say, do you know Norvell? I say, no, and I'm good. So we're all good there. Terry, thanks for having me on, buddy. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you, buddy. That is Frank Franchi from 1010XL 92.5 FM, the voice of the Jacksonville Jaguars. What do you say, 8 years and running. And Frank has covered college football as deep as anybody. He really, really knows the college game as well. Appreciate his time and talking some college, SEC, and national college football with Frank Franchi. Wow, that'll just about do it. What a show today. If you missed any of it, it's always archived. You can find the show on all of our podcasts as well, all the leading podcast platforms, but on our Facebook page, College Sports Today, it's archived. 1010XL's Facebook page, we go live, and you can find the podcast on their page under the Gator listings. If you missed it today, first half of the show, Steve Spurrier walked us through the 1996 Florida National Championship season in our Florida football flashback. And then how about wrapping up the show, the second half of the show, with Frank Franchi previewing the SEC Media Day. It's coming up on Monday, and just college football in general. Well, let's get out of here. It has been an awesome, awesome show. Hope you enjoyed it. I loved talking to two of my good friends talking college ball, Coach Spurrier and Frank Franchi. Remember, Monday, the whole gang is back. Shane Matthews at a reunion in Mississippi. He'll be back. Coach Spurrier will be here, and I will join him, of course, bringing you the Monday edition of College Sports Day. For Evan Miller, I'm Terry Norvell. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you again on Monday.